Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Discourse communities in discourse analysis. In discourse analysis, communities refer to social groups or networks of individuals who share specific language practices, norms, values, and communication patterns. These communities, often termed discourse communities, are groups in which members interact regularly, use shared linguistic codes, and produce and interpret discourse in ways that reflect their social identities, roles, and purposes. Discourse communities can range from small groups like families or work teams to larger entities such as professional organizations, academic fields, or entire cultures. By studying how language is used within these communities, discourse analysts can explore how group norms are maintained, how identities are constructed, and how power relations are negotiated. Discourse within communities is not just about language use. It is a social practice that shapes and is shaped by the community's beliefs, values, and hierarchies. 1. Key concepts of communities in discourse analysis. Discourse communities. Defining groups through shared language practices. A discourse community is a group of people who share common goals, values, communication practices, and linguistic conventions. These communities often have specific ways of speaking or writing that reflect their collective identity, purpose, and expertise. Shared communication goals. Members of a discourse community often engage in communication to achieve specific, shared objectives. For example, a legal community's goal might be to interpret and apply the law, while a scientific community aims to share research findings. Specialized vocabulary and genres. Discourse communities often develop specialized terminology, jargon, and communication formats, such as legal briefs, academic papers, or business memos, that reflect the community's values and goals. Example: the academic community in a specific field, such as psychology, has its own specialized vocabulary, e.g., cognitive dissonance, operant conditioning, and writing conventions, e.g., structured research papers with abstract, introduction, methods, results, and discussion sections. New members, such as students or early career researchers, learn these conventions to participate effectively in the community. Speech communities. Groups defined by spoken language practices. A speech community refers to a group of people who share norms and rules for language use, particularly in spoken interactions. Speech communities are often defined by regional, ethnic, or cultural factors and can include variations in dialect, accent, and conversational styles. Common language features. Members of a speech community may share specific phonological, syntactical, and lexical features that distinguish their speech from others. This can include local dialects, slang, or idiomatic expressions. Interactional norms. Speech communities also share norms regarding how conversations are structured, such as turn-taking, politeness strategies, and the appropriate use of directness or indirectness. Example: a local community in southern England might speak a regional dialect that includes unique vocabulary and pronunciation patterns distinct from standard British English. The way people in this community greet each other, take turns in conversation, or express politeness may differ from speech communities in other parts of the country. Online communities and digital discourse. Virtual spaces where people connect and communicate. In the digital age, online communities have become an important focus in discourse analysis. These virtual spaces, such as social media platforms, forums, and blogs, bring together individuals who share interests, hobbies, or goals, and they develop their own discourse practices, including specific jargon, abbreviations, and norms for communication. Digital language practices. Online communities often use language creatively, employing emojis, hashtags, abbreviations, e.g., lol, btw, and memes to communicate and express shared cultural meanings. Platform-specific genres. Different online platforms, e.g., Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, foster distinct genres of discourse, such as discussion threads, photo captions, or short video commentary. Each platform has its own conventions and norms for how users interact. Example: in a Reddit community, or subreddit, focused on video games, members may use highly specialized gaming terminology and abbreviations, such as GG, good game, or OP, overpowered, that reflect their shared interests and knowledge. These terms help create a sense of belonging and expertise within the community. Communities of practice. Social groups defined by shared activities and learning. A community of practice is a group of people who engage in a shared activity or profession and, through this engagement, develop common practices, knowledge, and communication patterns. Unlike discourse communities, which are defined primarily by their use of language, communities of practice focus on the interaction between language, learning, and action. Shared learning and expertise. Members of a community of practice often share a particular expertise or set of skills and use language to exchange knowledge and refine their practice. Collaborative communication. In communities of practice, language is used collaboratively to solve problems, negotiate meaning, and improve the group's shared activities. Example: nurses working in a hospital form a community of practice. They engage in shared activities, patient care, and develop common communication practices, such as medical shorthand, specific terminologies for symptoms, and collaborative problem-solving discussions. Through this discourse, nurses not only share information but also maintain their professional identities. Interpretive communities. Groups defined by shared interpretive frameworks. An interpretive community refers to a group of people who share similar ways of interpreting texts, events, or social practices. These communities have a collective framework for making sense of the world, often influenced by cultural, political, or ideological factors. Shared interpretation strategies. Members of an interpretive community apply similar strategies when interpreting language or symbols, often based on shared values or experiences. Negotiating meaning. The discourse within interpretive communities is shaped by how members agree on the meanings of texts or events, sometimes in opposition to other interpretive communities. Example: fans of a particular TV show might form an interpretive community, sharing similar ways of understanding and discussing plotlines, character motivations, and themes. They may engage in online discussions or fan fiction writing, interpreting the show's narrative in ways that reflect shared values and perspectives. Professional communities. Groups defined by institutional or occupational discourse. Professional communities, such as those in medicine, law, business, or education, are shaped by institutional discourse, the formal language and practices used within particular professions. These communities develop specialized vocabularies, genres, and communication protocols that are necessary for carrying out professional tasks and maintaining authority. Institutional language. Professional communities use technical jargon and standardized formats, e.g., contracts, reports, diagnoses, that reflect their institutional roles and responsibilities. Authority and expertise. Discourse in professional communities often serves to establish and reinforce expertise, hierarchies, and credibility within the profession. Example: in the legal profession, lawyers and judges use formal language and legal terminology, e.g., precedent, burden of proof, when writing legal briefs or arguing cases in court. This specialized discourse reinforces their expertise and is essential for navigating the institutional demands of the legal system. Point 2. Key concepts in analyzing communities in discourse analysis. Insider-outsider dynamics. Navigating membership and exclusion. In discourse communities, there are often clear distinctions between insiders and outsiders, which are marked by language use. Insiders are fluent in the community's specialized discourse, while outsiders may struggle to understand or use the appropriate language conventions. Membership markers. Certain linguistic features, such as jargon, slang, or in-group references, serve as markers of membership. Those who use these features appropriately are recognized as legitimate members of the community. Exclusion mechanisms. Communities may exclude outsiders or gatekeep membership by controlling access to specialized knowledge or by challenging the credibility of those who do not conform to the group's language norms. Example: in a scientific community, using precise scientific terminology correctly can mark an individual as an insider. A layperson or early career researcher who misuses or misunderstands this language may be viewed as an outsider, potentially limiting their participation in the community. Power and hierarchies. Negotiating authority and influence through language. Power dynamics play a significant role in discourse communities, as language is often used to assert authority, maintain social hierarchies, or challenge established norms. Those with greater linguistic capital or fluency in the community's discourse often hold more influence. Control of discourse. In hierarchical communities, such as workplaces or professional organizations, certain members may control the discourse by determining which voices are heard or which topics are prioritized. Resistance and subversion. Members may also use language to resist or challenge power structures within the community, such as using humor, irony, or alternative discourses to push back against dominant norms. Example: in a corporate office, senior managers may control meetings by using formal business language and jargon, thereby reinforcing their authority. Junior employees might resist this hierarchy by using informal language, humor, or alternative communication styles during casual conversations with peers. Identity construction. Creating and negotiating social identities through discourse. Discourse within communities plays a crucial role in identity construction. Members use language to construct, perform, and negotiate their social identities within the community, including professional, cultural, gender, and ethnic identities. Performance of identity. Members may adopt particular linguistic styles, accents, or speech patterns to align with the community's norms and expectations, demonstrating their identity as insiders. Identity conflict. Conflicts may arise when an individual's multiple social identities come into tension, such as when a member's professional identity clashes with their cultural or personal identity within the community. Example: in a feminist academic community, members might use discourse that emphasizes gender equality and social justice. A woman in this community may adopt certain feminist language conventions to assert her identity as a feminist scholar, even as she navigates the broader academic environment that may have more traditional gender expectations. Knowledge sharing and socialization. Transmitting expertise and norms through discourse. Discourse communities often serve as spaces for knowledge sharing and socialization, where new members are taught the norms, values, and language practices of the group. This socialization process helps maintain the continuity of the community's discourse practices over time. Mentorship and training. Senior members of the community often take on roles as mentors or gatekeepers, guiding new members through the community's discourse and teaching them how to use language appropriately. Learning by doing. Newcomers often learn by participating in the community's discourse, gradually mastering its specialized vocabulary and communication norms through interaction and feedback. Example: in a law firm, new attorneys are socialized into the firm's discourse practices through mentorship and training. They learn how to write legal briefs, argue cases, and use the appropriate legal terminology by observing senior attorneys and participating in meetings, gaining fluency in the community's specialized discourse over time. 3. Examples of communities in discourse analysis. Example 1. Academic discourse communities. Context: analyzing the discourse practices of an academic community within a specific field, such as sociology. Analysis: researchers might examine how members of the academic community use specialized language, citation practices, and argumentation styles to build knowledge and establish authority. They could also analyze how new scholars are socialized into the community through graduate training, conferences, and publications. Example 2. Political discourse communities. Context: analyzing the discourse of political movements or parties. Analysis: discourse analysts might focus on how members of a political community, such as supporters of a specific political party, use language to construct collective identity, mobilize action, and define opposition groups. For example, slogans, speeches, and social media posts could be examined to understand how political discourse creates a sense of belonging and frames key issues. Example 3. Online fan communities. Context: analyzing the discourse of a fan community dedicated to a particular TV show or video game. Analysis: in an online fan community, discourse analysts could explore how fans use language to build a shared understanding of the show or game's narrative, characters, and themes. They might also study how fans negotiate interpretations of the media and create new content, e.g., fan fiction, Means. Using the community's shared language practices. Conclusion. Communities in discourse analysis encompass a wide variety of social groups that use language in specific, meaningful ways to achieve shared goals, express identities, and maintain norms. Whether analyzing discourse communities, speech communities, online communities, or professional communities, researchers examine how language practices reflect and shape social structures, power dynamics, and cultural values. By understanding how discourse operates within communities, discourse analysts gain insights into how social identities, hierarchies, and norms are constructed and maintained through language. Frequently asked questions. What are communities in discourse analysis? In discourse analysis, communities refer to social groups or networks where members share specific language practices, norms, values, and communication patterns. These can range from small groups like families to larger entities such as professional organizations, academic fields, or entire cultures. What is a discourse community? A discourse community is a group of people who share common goals, values, and linguistic conventions. They often use specialized vocabulary and genres that reflect their collective identity, purpose, and expertise, such as academic fields, professional groups, or hobbyist communities. How do speech communities differ from discourse communities? Speech communities are defined by shared norms for spoken language use, often influenced by regional, cultural, or ethnic factors. They focus on common dialects, accents, and conversational styles. In contrast, discourse communities are defined more broadly by shared language practices and goals, which may include both spoken and written communication. What role do online communities play in discourse analysis? Online communities are virtual spaces where individuals connect and communicate. They have unique discourse practices, including platform-specific jargon, abbreviations, and interaction norms. Analyzing digital language use reveals how communities create shared meanings and identities in virtual environments. What is a community of practice in discourse analysis? A community of practice is a group engaged in a shared activity or profession. Through this engagement, members develop common practices and communication patterns. Language is used collaboratively to exchange knowledge and refine their practice, such as in professional settings like hospitals or educational institutions. How do interpretive communities contribute to discourse analysis? Interpretive communities are groups that share similar ways of interpreting texts, events, or social practices. They use shared frameworks for understanding language and symbols, often influenced by cultural, political, or ideological factors. This concept highlights how discourse shapes and is shaped by collective interpretation. How do professional communities use language? Professional communities use institutional discourse, including technical jargon and standardized formats, to perform tasks and maintain authority. The specialized language in fields like law, medicine, or business reinforces expertise and navigates the demands of the profession. What are insider-outsider dynamics in discourse communities? Insider-outsider dynamics refer to the distinctions between those who are fluent in a community's language practices, insiders, and those who are not, outsiders. Language markers like jargon and in-group references signify membership, while unfamiliarity with these practices can exclude outsiders. How does language reflect power and hierarchies in discourse communities? Language in discourse communities often reflects power dynamics, where those with greater linguistic capital hold more influence. Hierarchies are maintained by controlling discourse, prioritizing certain voices, and setting norms. Resistance can occur through alternative language use or subversive communication styles. How is identity constructed within discourse communities? Members of discourse communities use language to construct and negotiate their social identities. By adopting specific linguistic styles or norms, individuals assert their membership and align with the community's values, while also navigating identity conflicts when different social roles come into play. What is the role of knowledge sharing in discourse communities? Discourse communities facilitate knowledge sharing and socialization. New members learn norms, values, and language practices through mentorship, training, and participation, ensuring the continuity of the community's discourse practices over time.